and he was beaten in such a way that he dies. Right? Why? Because why he beaten to the boy? Because boy belongs to the Dalit community, as you know. That we have achieved in the last 75 years. Right? Yeah, have you heard that news? Shobhit, Harshita, Ashwin, Ashish, Adarsh, Raghav, Nilesh. Can we assume that a teacher can do like this and that can be a teacher? Right? Caste is not a person, that you can imprison. Caste is a mind. Right? Until we don't change our mindset, our psychology, we can't change society. Anyway, very painful incident. And have you heard about Salman Rushdie was stabbed multiple times in US because he wrote something satanic, somewhat, which is not suitable to Palestinian community. Right? The Iranian religious leader, released fatwa 30 years ago. Right? 30 years ago. Very sad. Yeah, very sad for. Yeah, come. I've checked your paper. Sai, yours paper has not been checked yet. Yours and Harshita. Shobhit, I have sent your answer today itself. This is Sheetal. Sheetal has not come yet, right? Dilip, take your paper. Ashish, your paper is with me. Hi, good morning. Ashish, your paper is with me. Come and collect it tomorrow. This is नाम लिख लीजिए, दिया कीजिए तो अच्छा लगेगा मेरे लिए. आइडेंटिफाई करना. This is your paper. Write it. जितना ज़्यादा लिखोगे उतना बढ़िया रहेगा. Right? Write more and more. जितना अभी मेहनत कर लोगे उतना बाद में काम आसान पड़ेगा. नहीं तो अगर पास करना है तो उतना रगड़ना तो आपको है खुद को. आज रगड़ लो या बाद में रगड़ लो. Right? If you want to cross that border now, you have to be rigorous. Either you be today or tomorrow. You have to. Otherwise, there are, so that race now, बहुत competition is. Anyway, I was talking about Rajasthan incident. Have you heard about that? Harshita Ji? Our Rajasthan incident. 8-year or 10-year boy was beaten in such a way that he dies. Why he beaten? Because he drank water from his teacher's pot. His teacher belongs to the upper caste, and the boy belongs to the Dalit community. Right? His title is Megawal. The boy's title is Megawal. Title does matter in India. Caste does matter in India. And the Minister of Social Justice, the ministers who hold this position, his title is also Megawal. Right? And we have celebrated 75th years of independence. Right? There's a difference between independence and freedom. We achieved independence in 1947, but freedom yet to come. Freedom yet to come. Freedom for women, freedom for LGBT, freedom for Dalit community. Right? There are many areas where freedom yet to come. Yes. You can say that even Jack has lowered down and the Tiranga is hoisted. But freedom is yet to come. Anyway. And yet we say we all are free. It's yet to come, Ashish. I told you that there's independent. There's one book, a very famous book by some feminist author, Independence to Freedom, right? And she talks about, yes, we got achieved independence in 1947, but freedom yet to come, right? And she talks about woman condition, right, in society. But it's not only woman as a social group who needs freedom, right? A freedom from patriarchy, right? A freedom from mindset, right? There are several groups who needs freedom. Yes, ठीक है, झंडा लहरा लीजिए, पर उस झंडे का मतलब भी होना चाहिए. Anyway, I was very anguished, and see you, the Salman Rushdie was stabbed to death. You must tell me, is likely to be. After 30 years, he wrote certain verses in 1980s, approximately 84-85, right? And Iranian religious leader gave issued a fatwa to kill him. Now, after 30 years, he was stabbed. The publisher was already killed in 1990s because he published the book, Satanic Verses. But even after being stabbed by a person, he told to the press, or that press, it was written in the media, that he said, "Oh, Salman Rushdie, that I will write Satanic Verses 1,000 times again." Right? We have studied freedom of speech and expression. We must deliberate if we don't agree with certain ideas. Fine. But you cannot kill someone merely because someone has said something. Right? And it is not about one religion. Mind it. Religion itself is an orthodox institution. Religion itself is an orthodox institution. We have to come about this institution, right? अगर आप कोई भी आप देख लीजिए, आप कुछ कह दीजिए, अभी लोग माने आ जाएंगे, बजरंग दल के लोग आ जाएंगे, कुछ. Bijendra Jha, one teacher was saying, teaching the students, and now these days every video is recorded, right? That video was put in on YouTube, and then Bajrang Dal came, to the Bijendra Jha and to be the teacher. So that is the status of the day. We achieved in the last 975 years. We achieved a lot. कल हिंदू पढ़ा बहुत सारे articles. Right? There are three good articles. One by Pradeep Chibor on India's development. Another is my teacher Rekha Saxena on this asymmetric federalism. And third is on local government by T.R. Raghunandan. 3 articles you should look at. Only 3 articles. There are many articles. I think 9 or 10 articles that there are. ठीक है. मनमोहन सिंह ने भी एक आर्टिकल लिखा है. पढ़िए जरूर सबको. But 3 articles से थोड़ा सा चीज निकालिए. आर्टिकल पढ़ना बहुत जरूरी है. One more thing, अगर मान लीजिए टाइम नहीं है आपके पास, right? And you go through opinion page of Hindu and Indian Express, both. Right? You buy both newspaper. Right? And think कि अगर कुछ आ रहा है, मान लीजिए फेडरलिज्म पे कुछ आया है. It may be physical federalism, it may be center-state, water dispute, relationship. Write the author name, and if you can summarize the author intention, the author's statement in 2-3 lines, that would be sufficient. Don't write the entire story. Entire story I'll tell you. Right? But the author का नाम और जो वो है ना, that will enrich your idea. Even this, reading an entire article will enrich you. Fine. तो उतना लिखे, बहुत है, नहीं लिखेंगे तो मैं दूँ. Right, I'm here to tell you everything. Yeah. So what do we study? What will we study? So even the big for such things. I don't know, Ashish. It may be, right? कुछ भी बोलना बड़ा ही खतरनाक हो जाता है। अगर आप, जैसे मैंने फ्रीडम बोला, फ्रीडम फॉर, अभी बोला था फ्रीडम फॉर वुमेन, फ्रीडम ये टू काम, अगर इसी को हिंदी में ट्रांसलेट कर लो, हमें आजादी चाहिए, तो लोग बोला आजादी चाहिए, वो तो मिल चुका 75 ईयर्स पहले, अब कौन सा आजादी चाहिए, भारत तोड़ना है क्या? Different perceptions may be, different interpretation can be done, right? नहीं, अगर इसको हिंदी में बोल दो कि आजादी चाहिए, राइट, महिलाओं के लिए आजादी चाहिए, किन्नरों के लिए आजादी चाहिए, राइट, दलितों के लिए आजादी, अच्छा आजादी चाहिए, दलितों को अलग देश चाहिए, महिलाओं को अलग देश चाहिए, अलग इंटरप्रिटेशन होता है, मैं बता रहा हूँ, राइट? और आप हो जाएंगे बीटेड, यू नो, यू विल बी बीटेड ऑन द रोड, नहीं है? सो बढ़िया है कि कितना कन्वर्सेशन, जो भी थोड़ा कन्वर्सेशन है थोड़ा कॉम्प्लेक्स है, डू इट इन इंग्लिश, राइट? कि उनको थोड़ा कम समझ में आएगा, पर ऐसा नहीं कि कम समझ में नहीं आएगा। फाइन, उनको मीन्स ऑर्थोडॉक्स, इट मे बी एनीवन। चलो, should we start then? Yeah, Shobit, Radhav, तुम्हें नहीं बोलो today, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 वाले, चलो बहुत बढ़िया है। should we start then? Yeah. तो हम लोग लास्ट में क्या पढ़े? अच्छा, अमृत महोत्सव मनाया कि नहीं? नहीं मनाया? हर्ष में अमृत महोत्सव, yesterday did you celebrate? हाँ, I studied. You? I studied. You studied? Oh, they have celebrated. कब तक celebrate किया कि नहीं? अमृत के साथ या without अमृत? Without अमृत। ठीक है, शोभित, what about you? Hers, Ashish, Ashwin. Anyway, it was a nice day, but I see, you know, I bought a tiranga. No, I used to. Even you can go to my Facebook, वो तिरंगा असली 2 साल से लगा हुआ है, right? But तिरंगा लोग जो बेच रहे थे, रोड पे फेंका हुआ है, फटा हुआ है तिरंगा, right? उसका जो मान है, you know, there is a National Honor Act 1971, right? Through this act, any person can be punished if you treat tiranga in a certain way, right? But on the name of Har Ghar Tiranga, Har Ghar, you know, थोड़ा सा तिरंगे का मान रखिए, तिरंगे को फटने मत दीजिए, तिरंगे को गिरने मत दीजिए, बट लोग कहाँ जानते हैं मास लेवल पे, राइट? अब यही सदर बाजार देखिए तिरंगे का क्या है, उनको तो अपॉर्चुनिटी मिल गई ना बेचने के लिए, नहीं बे। चलिए हम लोग क्या पढ़ने वाले हैं? जेएस मिल। जेएस मिल we did I think only Bertie we done, right? Now right, जेएस मिल on representative government। कुछ सवाल है तो पूछिए। जेएस मिल on representative government। मैंने ये भेज दिया है मिल, और इसके ऊपर रूसो के ऊपर सवाल नहीं किया है, आप बनाइए, और ज्यादा सवाल चाहिए तो मुझे बोल दीजिएगा, फाइन? बट जो भी सवाल बनते अच्छे अच्छे मैंने बना के ऑलरेडी भेज दिया है। यस, तो कुछ सवाल है? एनी क्वेश्चन इफ यू हैव, दैट पोजीशन कम्स विद just not just to show for a day, that's what I will do. Okay, fine. Yeah, you're right. जब I think in democracy पढ़ाऊंगा तब patriotism थोड़ा पढ़ाऊंगा कि what is patriotism all about. But we will talk about nationalism. Yeah, okay. So, J.S. Mill on representative government. You know, J.S. Mill was a very, थोड़ा सा समझा देता हूँ, then लिखाना है basically. J.S. Mill was a very strong supporter of representative government, right? He loved Athenian democracy, and Athenian democracy was based on direct democracy. It was a direct democracy. It was based on, you know, election, participation of people, right? Then holding office, then he was a strong supporter of, because since population is too large in the modern time, so direct democracy could not be possible, right? So that's why he was in favor of representative government, right, or representative democracy. He was a strong supporter of right to vote for women. शोभित आपने इनको लिखा है कि he is a father of feminism. Don't write it. It was a Mary Wollstonecraft who wrote earlier than the J.S. Mill. So give recognition to Mary Wollstonecraft rather than J.S. Mill. J.S. Mill was really a pioneer, of course, along with Mary Wollstonecraft. He was a great votary of women's legal right to property, right, and right to vote. He was, in support of democratization of the parliament, right, and deliberation. Fine. So this is all about his idea about representative government or representative democracy. ठीक है, थोड़ा लिखिए, चलिए लिखिए. J.S. Mill one question has come. What is the basic difference between representative democracy and direct democracy? Who will answer it? आशीष ने पूछा है, इसको आंसर कर लेते उसके बाद चलते हैं. क्या है?
Everyone participates directly, each and every person. But representative, every person chooses a representative who then go and populate.
In direct democracy, people represent themselves, right? They do deliberate, they do hold offices, legal office, political office, administrative office, right? And they represent themselves, right? Now in representative democracy, people elect representative. People elect their representative, and that representative represents the people's interest. That is the basic difference, Ashish. इसमें लोग participate करते हैं, इसमें लोग participate करते हैं, और कुछ नहीं. लॉ बनाने में अभी लॉ कौन बनाता है? पार्लियामेंट ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ पीपल. We will come when I teach democracy. Don't worry. लिखिए, अब लिखना शुरू करिए. क्या लिखा? आपने कुछ लिखा? J.S. Mill. Okay. J.S. Mill was a great votary. J.S. Mill was a great votary. Great votary of representative democracy. Great votary of representative democracy. His work, consideration of representative government. His work, consideration of representative government. His word consideration of representative government explains that democracy is a best form of government due to three reasons. Democracy is the best form of government due to three reasons. Three reasons. First, democratic government protect individuals' liberty. was a champion of liberty. Democratic government protects individual liberty. Second, first, democratic government protects individual liberty. Second, democracy gives opportunity to all. Second, democracy gives opportunity to all to participate in the collective affair of the state. Right? Third, democracy is an outcome. Democracy is an outcome of long struggle. The competent people engage themselves in democracy. The competent people engage themselves in democracy. Had a change on right. J.S. Mill was an admirer of Athenian democracy. Right? Due to its two central pillars. First, a participation of all. यहाँ पर equal participation को देंगे आ जाएगा. Equal participation of all. Second, deliberation in order to take decision.
Deliberation in order to take decisions.
Next, Mill.
J.S. Mill was admirer of Athenian democracy due to its two central pillars. First one is equal participation of all.
Yeah.
Second one is deliberation in order to take decisions.
Take decisions. Very good. Since direct democracy is not possible, due to large population, therefore, Mill was a staunch supporter of representative democracy. ठीक है, अब पैरा चेंज कर लीजिएगा और लिखिएगा J.S. Mill was influenced by Alexis de Tocqueville. Tocqueville's work, क्या नाम है इनका? डेमोक्रेसी नाम है इनका. J.S. Mill was influenced by, सीधा Tocqueville लिखोगे तो भी चलेगा, but पहले दूसरी बार लिखवा है. लास्ट क्लास में भी आपके उसे नाम इंट्रोड्यूस किया था। इनका पूरा नाम था ईडी टॉकविलिस, किताब का नाम था डेमोक्रेसी इन अमेरिका। J.S. Mill was influenced by Alexis de Tocqueville's work, Democracy in America, right? And he believed that, democratic politics should have in people's spirit, people's spirit. He was in favor of democratization of parliament. He was in favor of democratization of parliament, election, participation, and deliberation. Right? He was a great votary of legal equality, bracket में लिखा right to vote, bracket में right to vote, and legal equality,
Yes.
right to property लिखो, right to property, दिमाग में कुछ चल रहा है, right to property bracket में yeah, and political equality, legal equality and political equality between man and woman. He was a great votary of legal equality and political equality between man and woman. Legal equality के पास में right to property रख दीजिए, right to choose, partners, ये भी लिख सकते हैं, and political equality के पास right to vote. Okay? Got the idea? He was a great votary of legal equality and political equality between man and woman. तो लीगल इक्वालिटी क्या मतलब है? जो इंटाइटलमेंट मेरा है वही ख्याति का है। लीगल इक्वालिटी, राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी सबके पास है, राइट? लॉ, इक्वालिटी बिफोर लॉ, दैट इज लीगल इक्वालिटी ना। देयर इज नो डिफरेंस बिटवीन मैन एंड वुमन, देयर इज नो प्रिविलेजेस, दैट इज लीगल इक्वालिटी। एंड व्हाट इज पॉलिटिकल इक्वालिटी? पॉलिटिकल इक्वालिटी इज I have also right to vote, woman has also right to vote. Got the idea? So he was a great votary, right? Change the paradigm, right? Dennis Thompson, P-E-N-I-S, Dennis Thompson, T-H-O-M-P-S-O-N. Dennis Thompson has argued that Mill's idea of democracy is based on two principles. First, principle of competence. Principle of competence. It refers to need for a professional class. It refers to need for a professional class, like bureaucrats, technical expertise, like bureaucrats, technical expertise, legal professionals, legal professionals, field experts, etc., 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 to run the affair of the government. What the idea principle of competence कि हमें सरकार डेमोक्रेसी कैसे चलेगी? Democracy तब चलेगी when it will be the conglomeration of many competent people, legal expert, bureaucrat, technical expert, right? Then field expert, right? So that government can be run. A democratic government can be run. Second principle of participation. Principle of participation. It means, it means democracy should be inclusive. Democracy should be inclusive and multi-layer of government. And multi-layer of government. Fine? Can I change and write? Although, although J.S. Mill was a propounder of representative democracy, although Mill was a propounder of representative democracy, but his idea was not consistent. But his idea was not consistent. J.S. Mill was worried about. J.S. Mill was worried about rule of the majority. Rule of the majority. He argued that rule of the majority may turn rule of the tyranny. Rule of the tyranny. And it is dangerous for democracy. And it is dangerous for democracy. One, okay, J.S. Mill was also not in favor of J.S. Mill was also not in favor of one person, one vote, and one value. One person, one vote, and one value. Right? He was well aware about the British society. The British society wherein the HEREIN इसी में लगा देंगे ना एक साथ, wherein working class had majority. Wherein working class had majority. Right? J.S. Mill feared. J.S. Mill had feared that working class may gain political and economic power. J.S. Mill feared that working class may gain political and economic power, and minorities like educated class aristocratic class may face prosecution. But the idea उनका था कि अगर 1% 1 vote 1 value देंगे तो ज्यादा majority किसकी है? वर्किंग क्लास की. अगर वर्किंग क्लास ज्यादा पावर में आ गए तो क्या होगा? वो अपना चलाएंगे. होगा क्या? जो माइनॉरिटी है, एरिस्टोक्रेटिक क्लास, एजुकेटेड क्लास, उनको पर्सिक्यूट करना शुरू करेंगे. राइट? तो ये इससे भी डर रहा है. कौन? जेएस मिल. एक तरफ तो बोल रहे हैं कि नहीं डेमोक्रेसी अच्छी बात है, डेमोक्रेसी लीगल लिबर्टी को दे रहा है. नाउ बट ही वाज इन डायलेमा. Right, and you can find that dilemma in all, in majority of thinkers. For example, Rousseau में हमने देखा कि he was in support of freedom, but at the same time वो एक clip लगा देता है. He will be chained. Fine. So चलो ये पता चल गया कि he was in favor of one person, multiple vote. अगर एजुकेटेड क्लास है उसके पास मल्टीपल वोट होने चाहिए. अगर वर्किंग क्लास है तो वन वोट चलेगा. बट एक प्रोपर्टी क्लास है मल्टीपल वोट. सो दैट मेजॉरिटी एंड माइनॉरिटी कैन बी बैलेंस्ड. बट then
then there won't be equality. Like he's talking about equality too.
Exactly, that won't be equality. Fine, exactly. He was in fear of that equality. This is one person, one vote, and this is political equality, na? He was not in favor of this equality. Repeat the last line once, please.
J.S. Mill feared that working class may get political and economic power. Minorities like executive class, aristocratic class may face prosecution.
J.S. Mill had feared that working class may gain political and economic power, and minorities like educated class, aristocratic class may face prosecution. Educated class, aristocratic class may get prosecution. Fine, change the para and write. J.S. Mill argued that a well-functioning democracy must create institutions and allow people to deliberate. Healthy debate and discussion between representative and representative and representative. हाँ हम लोग representative है. हमारा representative always gives good fruit. they also ensure that minority get represented. They also ensure that minority get represented in public office. Public office. Okay, like Athenian democracy, comma, Mill was great advocate. Mill was a great advocate of civic virtue. It means people should participate. It means people should participate at various levels of the government. Various levels of the government. Right? He said participation in the government and deliberation. Participation in the government and deliberation have educative aspects. Right?
He said participation in the government and delegation have educative aspects.
इसका क्या मतलब है? इसका मतलब ये है कि participation and deliberation educate people, right? How to participate, how to deliberate within the government, right? समझ में आया? Right. Now one two line.
So what is last word?
Mill was supporter of open ballot. कम कर दूं? Mill was a supporter of secret ballot, open ballot, and he was supporter of plural voting. Right? His democracy was not based on political equality. His democracy was not based on political equality. That is, one person, one vote, and one value. And one value. Like Athenian democracy, Mill's idea of democracy was based on inequality.
This idea of democracy
Was based on inequality. हो गया ना inequality. वो चाहते थे कि ठीक है वर्किंग क्लास को राइट वोटिंग मिले, ठीक है, बट जो एजुकेटेड क्लास है उसको ज्यादा 1% होना चाहिए और ज्यादा वोट होना चाहिए. मान लीजिए वन एजुकेटेड क्लास 5 वोट और वर्किंग क्लास है 1% 1, क्योंकि यहाँ इनकी मेजोरिटी ज्यादा है तो मेजोरिटी टैलेंट में मेजोरिटी ना हो पाए. राइट? ये चेक करता है. फाइन हो गया था. क्या करेगा? ठीक है, चलो and more.
then where did he put women? Because he
Uh,
also asked for right to vote for women.
yeah. See, I told you his love story, right? He wrote two books under the influence of Harry Taylor. One is on liberty, right? On liberty का पतली सी किताब है. अगर आप उसकी प्रीफेस पढ़ेंगे तो उस प्रीफेस में लिखा हुआ है कि this book is as much as mine, as much as the Taylor's. ये किताब जितनी मेरी है उतनी ही टेलर्स की है. दूसरी किताब उसने लिखी थी The Subjection of Woman under the influence of Harriet, right? And till the mid of 19th century, you can see a woman had no right to vote. Not only right to vote, women had no legal equality, right? Women had no right to marriage. Women had no right to property. Women had no right to go out in the public square. Women had no right to education. It's not peculiar to the Indian society. The worldwide women were actually suppressed, subordinated, right? And it was have you heard about slavery? Slavery के बारे में हमने थोड़ा पढ़ा है. Till mid of 18th century, slavery was very popular. It was traded in Europe, but slave, revolted, right? And there was an end of slavery. That gave inspiration to the women thinkers, educated women, right? And they demanded equality for women with respect to man, right? Whatever man has right, for example, legal right or political right, women should have that also, right? So therefore they demanded. And right to vote was, of course, here you can see it was not substantial per se, right? But of course, it was an initial label, it was for legal and political equality. So he was in support of that. What the idea?
So in his plural, when he supports plural voting, then
Plural voting में working class को counter करने के लिए.
yeah. So in that he or
Because we feared कि working class आएगा तो working class तो ज़्यादा पढ़ा लिखा होगा नहीं. 1% वोट देंगे तो वो कुछ भी बोलेगा. और जब कुछ भी बोलेगा, कुछ भी लेजिस्लेट करेगा, उनकी संख्या ज़्यादा होगी. डेमोक्रेसी का मतलब क्या होता है? रूल ऑफ द मेजॉरिटी. अगर रूल ऑफ द मेजॉरिटी होगा तो रूल ऑफ मेजॉरिटी रूल ऑफ टायरनी में ट्रांसफॉर्म हो जाए. दैट वाज हिज फियर. व्हाट द आइडिया?
so that means he puts women also in categories like educated women.
Educated, yeah. Fine? Yeah, any question? Now, should I move to next is the idea about women rights. Bijendra Jha Mill works on the subjection of women. J.S. Mill's work, the subjection of woman. Subjection of और इसका पब्लिकेशन बाद में हुआ जब हैरियट ऐसे तो सबको ऐसा प्रेम सबको मिले जो कुछ सिखा जाए, राइट? कुछ किताबें लिख डाले. Now write about this book, right? J.S. Mill was influenced by his partner Harriet Taylor Mill. Harriet Taylor Mill. Hang on, let me show you the British Society. Harriet Taylor, this is the title, Taylor and Mill. यहाँ पे जब कोई साथी पाठक करता है, लड़की पाठक होती है, लड़का मिश्रा होता है, तो लड़की भी मिश्रा हो जाती है। Have you heard about that? The boy's title is octave generally. So ये टेलर ने इसका हस्बैंड का उसका टाइटल था टेलर। जब इसने मिल से शादी किया बाद में, तो इसने मिल भी लगा दिया बाद में। तो ये हैरी टेलर में नहीं होता है हमारे यहाँ, कोई लगा लेती है फलाना पाठक मिश्रा सब, नहीं होता है ना? Have you observed how woman gets their title? क्या लिखा? So patriarchy वहाँ पर भी थी, यहाँ पर भी थी, वहाँ पर भी थी।
This bill was invented by his partner Henry Taylor.
Yeah, in his book on liberty, Mill accepted that Harriet Taylor deserves co-authorship of our best book on liberty. Our best book on liberty. किताब का नाम है On Liberty. On Liberty. ये क्या था इसका? 59 याद रखना। जब भी On Liberty की किताब में लिखे आपने ईयर जरूर डालना, राइट? और अगर ईयर मैक्सिमम बुक्स में अगर आप लिख सकते हो, यू मस्ट राइट। फाइन, भूल गए टेंशन नहीं लेना। देखिए, this book is as much mine as her. This book is as mine. This book as much mine as her. Full stop. But change the para and write both J.S. Mill and Harry Taylor Mill both J.S. Mill and Harry Taylor Mill worked on emancipation of women, or worked for emancipation of women. Emancipation of women. While Taylor published book, The Enfranchisement of Women. Of women in 1851, J.S. Mill published The Subjection of Woman. The subjection of woman in 1869. देखिए, उन्होंने ये किताब लिखा, इन्होंने ये किताब लिखा, राइट? Both were a staunch supporter of, both were a staunch supporter of women's, there's a, yeah, I, there's, but, yeah, वो घूम रहा है, मैं देख रहा हूँ, आप लोगों को पढ़ा रहा हूँ और देखता हूँ, क्या लिखा हमने? Both were staunch supporter of women's legal and political equality. Legal and political equality. Legal and political equality. Both supported equal property right for women, along with right to vote, for women. Right? Okay. Change the para and write Taylor focused on a popular belief. Taylor focused on a popular belief that women are unfit for politics. Women are unfit for politics, and politics is unfit for women. She emphasized on women participation in public sphere. And argued that women are equally entitled to participate in public sphere. Women are equally entitled to participate in public sphere. Fine. तो इन्होंने इसका क्वेश्चन जवाब दिया. लेकिन J.S. Mill change the para and write J.S. Mill in his book The Subjection of Woman. J.S. Mill in his book The Subjection of Woman pointed out that half of the mankind that is women have so long been held in subjection of to the other half, not of, to the other half, that is man. Mill questioned the grounds of subjection. Mill questions the ground of this subjection of woman to man. Mill questioned the ground of this subjection of woman to man in the eye of law, and in the eye of custom. In the eye of the custom. He argued that that mere biological difference between man and woman. He argued that mere biological difference between man and woman cannot be imposed. And justify the exclusion of women. From right to vote and public sphere. Right? Fine. Got the idea? Check the other gun to school class session. ये हो गया इनका. अब now if you look at there is one question Ashish has asked, sir please discuss personal is political. Did we ever discuss personal is political? Once upon a time. Now if you look at when we will talk about Ashish the wave of feminism, there is more, four waves of feminism. The first wave of feminism is called liberal feminism. You can just थोड़ा सा summary लिख सकते हैं. Four waves of feminism or four phases of feminism. एक टाइप four wave of feminism. First है liberal phase. It's called liberal feminism. Like or phase. यहाँ पे liberal phase भी हो सकता है. अच्छा. If you look at the mid of 19th century, just before a few minutes, we talked about the women were very influenced by the slavery, anti-slavery movement, right? And they also, talked about equal right to women, right? So legal right and political right. So if you look at the, original exponent here, Mary Wollstonecraft. Exponent कौन था? Exponents थे Mary Wollstonecraft. R.Y. and Wollstonecraft. Wollstonecraft. Mary Wollstonecraft. Then J.S. Mill. Then Harriet Taylor Mill. Harriet Taylor Mill, right? ये सब एक्सपोनेंट थे. इसका फर्स्ट वेव ऑफ फेमिनिज्म था. मेजर डिमांड क्या था? अच्छा, मेजर डिमांड क्या था? लीगल and political equality. Legal and political equality. मेजर डिमांड ये था. लड़के को राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी है, लड़के को भी होना चाहिए. लड़के को राइट टू मैरिज है, उसके बाद राइट टू डिवोर्स है, उसके पास भी होना चाहिए. राइट? तो लीगल इक्वालिटी होना चाहिए और पॉलिटिकल इक्वालिटी. Man has right to vote. Women should have also right to vote. Man has also right to contest election. Women should have also right to contest election. I'm talking in brief. We will talk about political ideology. Fine. Feminism. Clear है liberal feminism. Right? दूसरा जो फेज आता है फेमिनिज्म का वो आता है, इट्स कॉल्ड सोशलिज्म, सोशलिस्ट फेमिनिज्म और सोशलिस्ट नेचर। अच्छा, इसका या फिर क्या ये शुरू होता है 1920 से लेके 1960 तक, राइट? ये पीरियड है। 1917 में रशियन रिवॉल्यूशन होता है एंड रशिया वाज द फर्स्ट सोशलिस्ट स्टेट इन द वर्ल्ड, राइट? और यहाँ पर इनका था कॉन्सेप्ट था कि ये जो कैपिटलिज्म है ना, केवल मेल को एक्सप्लॉइट नहीं करता, ये वुमेन को भी एक्सप्लॉइट करता है, राइट? इसका आइडिया क्या था? Feminism is an idea, feminism का मतलब पूछ रहे हैं, feminism is an idea which talks about equality between man and woman, basically, right? So it talks about that woman as a social group should not be subordinated to man, merely because she's a woman. Got the idea? It is against of masculinism or paternalism. Ashish, okay, or against patriarchy, you can say. It talks about equal society.
In today's newspaper, we have seen that the Prime Minister used the word misogyny.
Misogyny.
Yes.
कल मैंने नहीं सुना, हाँ.
Newspaper front page.
आज का.
Yes.
Okay.
So misogyny and this patriarchy, how is that
Two different.
or this?
Two different. Misogyny means misogynist who does not believe in misogyny means जो hate करता है woman को, right? Am I right? और एक word all है जो marriage को hate करता है, right? Misogyny woman को hate करता patriarchy नहीं, वो तो फिर कहीं नहीं पाए. जो woman को hate करता है उसको तो आप अलग कैटेगरी में रखते. Feminism एक अलग criteria है, in general you see the private when or in the society, men women are unequal to man generally, and it is unequal due to justification given by so many texts, so many religious texts, so many authoritative texts, right? And it is a practice. It is a practice where men play a very dominant role. Men play a very dominant role over the woman. Keep it there. Okay.
Misogyny, men
Hates woman. अब बहुत होता है कि उसको woman से बड़ा घृणा होती है, पता नहीं क्यों होती है. हाँ, but this is very unnatural. Fine. आशीष, मुझे जल्दी जल्दी खत्म करना है. Second wave हुआ 93rd wave. We will talk about details जब हम feminism बात करेंगे. Second third wave is called radical feminism. और radical phase. And इसका शुरुआत होता है 1960s, 1970s. Fine. Fourth wave, it's called intersectionality. Intersectionality ये है 1990 से लेके आज तक. And let me tell you, there are many, these overlaps also. It's not that अभी radical feminism खत्म हो गया है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Right? Many things overlaps today. Even socialist feminism, liberal feminism, radical feminism. लोग liberal तक नहीं पहुंच पाए, radical को तो छोड़ दीजिए. Right? So it overlaps. आशीष, व्हाट द आइडिया? फेमिनिज्म का मतलब नहीं होता है वुमेन्स रूल, नो, राइट? व्हाट इज अगर पेट्रियार्की, अच्छा पेट्रियार्की क्या है? पेट्रियार्की इज रूल ऑफ द मैन ओवर वुमेन एंड रूल ऑफ द एल्डर ओवर द यंगर। दादाजी का चलेगा पिताजी के ऊपर, पिताजी का चलेगा बड़े बेटे के ऊपर, बड़े बेटे का चलेगा उससे छोटे बेटे के ऊपर, राइट? दैट इज आल्सो पेट्रियार्की। एंड man का rule of man over woman, that is simple notion of patriarchy. Fine. अच्छा patriarchy के उन्हें क्या होगा?
Matrilineal society.
Matrilineal society, no. जब patriarchy गलत है, हमने अभी इसी सेंस में patriarchy is not a good thing, then matriarchy कैसे अच्छी चीज हो जाएगी? अपोजिट कैसे होगा? matriarchy, राइट? तो कैसे अपोजिट हो जाएगा? इसका अपोजिट हुआ अपोजिट क्या होगा? इक्वालिटी rather than matriarchy. We will talk about a lot when we will talk about feminism, which is a meta ideology. ठीक है, उस दिन मसाले के साथ पढ़ाऊंगा इसको, टेंशन मत लो, राइट? जो आपके पास है वो उसमें देख लीजिएगा, अदरवाइज वी हैव फिनिश्ड जे.एस मिल। टाइम कितना हुआ? I'll move to Karl Marx.
So what about critical evaluation of J.S Mill?
दे दूंगा मैं बात एक क्वेश्चन, ठीक है? चलिए कार्ल मार्क्स के बारे में क्या कहते हैं? When I was doing my master, one of my friends was, used to say about him that आधी दुनिया इसको भगवान मानती है और आधी दुनिया इसको शैतान मानती है, right? Karl Marx was a figure about, the half of the world admires him, but half of the world criticizes him too much. He was so much influence, he had so much influence on economics, in philosophy, in politics, on an entire mankind. On entire mankind. If you look at Russian Revolution, that was the first revolution, 1917, right? That turned up as a socialist state. By 1950, the half of the world population, or the 40%, I'm telling you exact figure, 40% of the population was governed by a state who claimed themselves as a Marxist state, right? You can think of his stature, his influence, and if you look at his idea, it has not only influenced the socialist state, Marxist state, but it also influenced the liberals also. It also influenced liberals. Let me give you one example. We know about classical liberals and modern liberals. We know. But do you know why liberals revised their idea? Why classical liberal to modern liberal? Classical liberal is free, minimalistic. Classical liberal ये कहता है ना, इंडिविजुअल को फ्रीडम होना चाहिए, स्टेट लिमिटेड होना चाहिए. ये बताया आपको, राइट? मॉडर्न लिबरल क्या कहता है? मॉडर्न लिबरल क्या कहता है? वो कहता है स्टेट शुड इंटरवीन, राइट? स्टेट शुड इंटरवीन. क्यों कहता है? सपना नहीं आया। हुआ क्या? क्लासिकल लिबरल, अब देखेंगे वो स्टेट लिबरल लिमिटेड स्टेट को प्रमोट करता है, promoted the idea of liberal estate. And if you see the entire capitalism in 19th century, which has given which has given birth to many vulnerabilities. Right? For example, working hours was not fixed. It was 14 hours, 16 hours in UK. The thing, right? Even the workers were teenagers, women, so that the factory owner has not to pay the more money to the maid, because woman is the more cheap labor, as it is understood largely by the society, right? And it has also given birth to inequality, huge inequality, vulnerability. It has given birth to the shantytowns, slums. In London, there used to be huge slum, right? So it has given, and if you see the Marxist, right, they or the socialists hugely criticize classical liberals and their idea of state. Therefore, modern liberals revise the idea, no, state should intervene and provide basic amenities. For example, education to the worker, people like workers who are unable to give education to their child. Right? So Karl Marx's idea was not only influential to the socialists, it also influenced the liberals for itself. Yeah, it also influenced liberals. Liberals revised their idea. We will talk about. And Soviet ने क्या कहा अभी तक कार्ल मार्क्स के बारे में? Karl Marx was a god who failed, right? He said, he's quoting someone, right? Karl Marx was a god who failed. Anyway, he was a. आपको पता है एक बच्चा इसका भूखे मर गया. He had 6 children. One child died because he had no sufficient money to feed his family. Right? He used to read and write. Always stay in library. His mother told it's better to earn money rather than writing on money. Right? He was not popular. He was not popular when he died. Only few people went to his funeral. But after his death, he became so popular in the entire Europe and later on to the world that there was a revolution. There's one ideology called Marxist ideology. What's that ideology? We'll talk about. And when one writing about one book, and that book was titled as Thesis on Feuerbach, Marx wrote that if you look at philosophy of Aristotle, Plato, Mill, Rousseau, Hobbes, Locke, whatever, Montesquieu, right? It has interpreted the world, relationship, right? But Marx said, my purpose is to change the world. Not only interpretation, my purpose is to also interpret but change the world. That was his objective. Fine. And he was influenced by three great three things. One is he was highly influenced by Hegel. He was highly influenced by Hegel. He was also influenced by French version of socialism. Right? And he was also influenced by the British, or the European political economy. That was capitalist economy, totally. Three things influenced him a lot, right? So first three things we will talk about. The German, we will talk about Hegel, how Hegel influenced him, and how Marx has encountered Hegel. Secondly, we will talk about what was the socialism before Marx, right? And what is the Marx contribution? And the third thing we will talk about, classical political economy, क्या था उसमें, right? And Marx ने क्या contribution दिया, right? That we will talk about. थोड़ा सा कार्ल मार्क्स के बारे में लिखिए. Write it about Karl Marx. Write about Karl Marx. इनका एज था 1888 से 83 में खत्म हो गई है. Right, he was a great political philosopher of 19th century. He was a great philosopher of 19th century. 19th century. No thinker, let's talk about, no thinker had so direct and powerful influence. No thinker has direct and powerful influence upon mankind as Karl Marx. As Karl Marx. His impact can only be compared with religious figure like Buddha or Jesus. Half of the world called him a god. Half of the world called him a god, yet half of the world called him devil. Half of the world called him God, yet half of the world called him devil. In the mid of 20th century, 40% of the world's population, 40% of the world population lived under a government that considered themselves follower of Marx. It is not that Marx's idea influenced socialism, but also capitalism. Which learned many lessons from his idea to counter Marxism. Right? Okay? If you see anti-Cold War कब से शुरू होता है? 1945, after the World War. Actually कहा जाता है कि Cold War Russian Revolution के बाद से शुरू हो गया, right? but actual Cold War started after the Second World War and it continued till 1990, right? 1991, yeah, right. And if you see the one side of the Cold War was represented by US and their allies, and one side of the power bloc was Russia and others, and they call themselves as a true follower of Karl Marx. Fine. Because even today, if you see China, right? China lives under the influence of Mao, right? Maoism. But Mao was a follower of Karl Marx. He changed the idea, he little changed the idea of Marxism that suited the the country, China. Right? But the originator of idea was Karl Marx. Fine. Okay, we'll talk about later. थोड़ा पढ़िए तो, थोड़ा लिखिए तो. Even today, tell that I'm right. Even today, so we'll talk about neo-Marxist, structural Marxist, political ideology. Frankfurt School, बहुत सारा बताऊंगा, टेंशन मत लो. अभी थोड़ा कंफ्यूज नहीं करना चाहता मैं. सीधा सीधा चलो, राइट? थोड़ा आपके पास हो जाए आइडिया, मार्क्सिज्म समझ में आ जाओ तो फिर उसके बाद समझ आएंगे. ओके, या बट कुछ लोग पढ़े हुए हैं तो उनको लगता है कि नहीं, थोड़ा नहीं, हमें थोड़ा सा सिंपल जाना है. लेकिन इवन टुडे no one can think about society. No one can think about society without referring Karl Marx's idea. Without referring Karl Marx's idea, in order to link society and economy. In order to link society and economy. Marx's idea changed. Marx's idea changed modern history, sociology, philosophy, art, literature. Marx's idea changed modern history, sociology, philosophy, literature, art, and whatnot. And whatnot. It gave birth to several revolutions around the globe. It gave birth to several revolutions around the globe. It is said that one can be Marxist or anti-Marxist, but one cannot escape Marx. जैसे प्लेटो के लिए कहा जाता है, वैसे इनके लिए भी है. One cannot escape Marx. Either you may support Marx, either you may criticize Marx, right? But you cannot escape Marx from your study or from your analysis. अगर कोई आता है. Anyway, Bijendra Jha writes in his thesis on Feuerbach. This is on Feuerbach, Marx writes, that the philosopher philosophers have interpreted the world. The philosopher Philosophers have interpreted the world in various ways. Philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it. To change it. Full stop. Therefore, Marx was very clear. In his idea that he had to change the world. Marx had a very clear idea that he had to change the world. Not done. Okay. देखिए, Marx's idea change the paradigm, right? Marx's idea is based on synthesis of three things. First, German idealist philosopher Hegel. Second, French version of socialism. And third, classical political economy. Classical political economy. ये हो जाए तो मुझे बताइएगा. Done? Okay. अब थोड़ा सा हम देखेंगे कि हीगल के बारे में, हीगल से उन्होंने क्या लिया. Fine. So now we will talk about Hegel. Marx नहीं होता तो यूपीएससी का आधा सिलेबस कम हो जाता. ऐसा नहीं है. अब देखो कितने दिन हम देंगे मार्क्स को. 3 दिन 4 दिन तो लग जाएगा. 3-4 दिन. इतना मेल में हमने 3-4 दिन दिया है. 3 दिन इसमें भी देखिए. मार्क्स से ये तो है कि सोशियोलॉजी में पढ़िए, इकोनॉमिक्स में पढ़िए, मार्क्स यू कैन नॉट एस्केप. फिलॉसफी में पढ़िए, कहीं भी एंथ्रोपोलॉजी में पढ़िए, मार्क्स आप नहीं एस्केप कर सकते. राइट. चाहे आप हिस्ट्री पढ़िए, मार्क्सिस्ट इंटरप्रिटेशन है. चलिए हीगल को देखते हैं. हीगल क्या था. राइट. हीगल, इनका पूरा नाम था जॉर्ज एफ.डब्ल्यू. हीगल. बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग इंसान था. George F.W. Hegel. Now, if you look at टाइमिंग लिखा मीडियम भी लिखा है. ये फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन के बाद की स्टोरी है. If you look at Hegel, Kant, and another scholar, they were influenced by Enlightenment and also by the French Revolution, right? And if you see that Hegel was a professor. Hegel was a professor in one university in the state of Prussia. उस समय जर्मनी नहीं था. जर्मनी बाद में यूनिफिकेशन हुआ जर्मनी का. He was a professor and he was highly patronized by the state. Right? He was highly patronized by the state and he gave some idea. One idea is called dialectical idealism. Second is called historical idealism. Third is family, civil society, the state. And fourth is self-realization. अब आपने प्लेटो को पढ़ा है. प्लेटो क्या कहते हैं आइडिया और आइडिया के बारे में? व्हाट इज दिस आइडिया?
Idea and matter to go there.
Yeah, idea is real and matter is रिफ्लेक्शन मैटर. ये बेकार चीज है. जैसे जैसे आइडिया मतलब जिस तरह से आइडिया होता है वैसे मैटर होता है. इनका भी यही कहना है, राइट? और ही से दैट आइडिया मूव्स इन अ डायरेक्टिकल पाथ. कैसे मूव करता है अभी बताता हूं. इन्होंने कहा कि मान लो एक आइडिया है, राइट? और जैसे क्या है उसी तरह से मैटर आ जाएगा. वैसे हम फिर बढ़ेंगे, फिर दूसरा आइडिया है, ऐसे तरह से मैटर आएगा, फिर मैटर आएगा. ये ऐसा मूव करता है, आइडिया ऐसे ही मूव करता है प्रोग्रेसिवली. दूसरी बात उन्होंने कही, कि देखो किसी भी टाइम पे कोई आइडिया है, कोई भी आइडिया है, हाँ इसके अपोजिट में एक आइडिया क्रिएट हो जाता है, काउंटर आइडिया, राइट? अब क्या होता है, इन दोनों के बीच में डिस्कशन होता है, डिबेट होता है, डायलेक्टिक होता है, डिबेट होता है, डिस्कशन होता है. अब ये तीनों दोनों में जब डिबेट होता है तो ऐसा नहीं कि ये सच है या ये सच है, दोनों झूठ होता है और दोनों में सच्चाई होती है. ट्रूथ कैन नॉट बी एलिमिनेटेड. ट्रूथ कैन नॉट बी एलिमिनेटेड. होता क्या है कि दोनों का सच्चाई रह जाता है और एक समय के बाद एक तीसरा आइडिया आता है दोनों से निकाल के, दैट इज कॉल्ड न्यू. अभी बताऊंगा, अभी कुछ नहीं करना है, राइट? अब इसको कहा उन्होंने कि ये है थीसिस. मान लीजिए कोई भी आइडिया है, उसके काउंटर आइडिया है एंटीथेसिस. एंटीथेसिस. और जब ये दोनों टकराएंगे, दोनों में डिबेट होगा, डेलिब्रेशन होगा, तो न्यू आइडिया आएगा. अब ये न्यू आइडिया भी एक आइडिया की तरह काम करता है, थीसिस की तरह काम करता है, राइट? फिर इसके अगेंस्ट में एक न्यू आइडिया क्रिएट होता है, काउंटर आइडिया, एंटीथेसिस. ये थीसिस, एंटीथेसिस, सिंथेसिस ये चलता रहता है, राइट? उसी तरह जमाने बदलते रहते हैं. ठीक है, गॉट द आइडिया? यस, थोड़ा समझ में आया? और हीगल के बारे में लिख लीजिए. हीगल was product of French Revolution. Hegel was product of French Revolution. Like Kant, K-A-N-T, like Kant. He was a great philosopher. Who was patronized by the state. He was a great philosopher who was patronized by the state. He was a great philosopher who was patronized by the state. He was appointed as chair, C-H-A-I-R, of philosophy. He was appointed as chair of philosophy at the University of Berlin. By the education minister of Persia. Persia. Okay? By the Education Minister of Persia. In the para and right, Hegel was a father of modern idealism. Hegel was father of modern idealism. He had great influence. He had great influence in the first half of the 19th century. He had great influence in the first half of the 19th century. The entire academic community was divided between left Hegelian, left Hegelian, and right Hegelian. Left Hegelian and right Hegelian. जो लोग हीगल को क्रिटिसाइज करते थे वो हीगलियन हो गया और जो लोग इनपुट करते थे वो हो गए राइट हीगलियन. हीगल भी उसी तरह था स्टूडेंट के बीच में. You cannot escape Hegel. You have to talk about the idea that was given by Hegel. Fine. He was a father of modern idealism and great philosopher, right? Fine. Clear? His net worth. Philosophy of right. Philosophy of right. Phenomenology of the spirit. Phenomenology of the spirit. Phenomenology of the spirit. Third, science of logic. Science of logic. सबसे पॉपुलर किताब है फिलॉसफी ऑफ राइट. इसीलिए पहले लिखा है, अदरवाइज उन्होंने बाद में ये किताब लिखी. पहले किताब है इनका जो दोनों लास्ट में उन्होंने लिखी, बट बहुत पॉपुलर किताब है फिलॉसफी ऑफ राइट. देखिए, in Germany, change the para and write. In Germany, Hegel died in 1832. In Germany, Hegel died in 1832. Right? German scholars were very influenced by his idealism. German scholars were very influenced by his idealism. These scholars were called young Hegelians. These scholars were called young Hegelians. These scholars were called young Hegelians, like Bruno Bauer, B-R-U, and Bruno Bauer, B-A-U-E-R, Bruno Bauer, L-U-W-I-E-R, G, little bit bar. SUERBAH, Karl Marx. बहुत सारे थे, हमने 3 ही नाम लिए हैं, राइट? उतना नाम याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है. Korean Hegelians like Bruno Bauer, Feuerbach, and Marx. The key ideas of Hegel. Key ideas of Hegel. जो हमें जानना है. First, right? First, dialectical idealism. Dialectical idealism. Second, historical idealism. Historical idealism. Third, family, civil society, and state. Civil society and state. Family, civil society, and state. Fourth, self-realization. हो गया. Done. Ashwin, Nilesh, Shobhit, Ashish, you come here. I can observe you that you are constantly trying to connect, but I don't know whether you are able to connect us with us or not. ऑनलाइन का लिमिटेशन है, ठीक है? ऑनलाइन का लिमिटेशन है, कभी कभार ठीक है, चलता है, बट जो लोग दूर से हैं उनका कोई मतलब नहीं है, अल्टरनेटिव नहीं है. बट दोज हु वर्क कैन यू मस्ट कम, बिकॉज यहाँ पर बहुत अच्छी तरीके से क्लियर हो जाती है, यार वहाँ पर भी हो जाती है. मैंने कभी नहीं लिया ऑनलाइन क्लास रास्ता, हो जाती है, कोई दिक्कत तो नहीं होती, ठीक है?
Sir, it's just that if you have doubt, then sometimes.
Okay, otherwise it's clear, no problem. मुझे लगता है, सबको लगता है कि वहाँ पर लोग उस पता नहीं ठीक से सुनाई नहीं देता हो या नहीं देता हो, घर से पीछे ठक 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 हो रहा है, घर में होता है ना, राइट? मम्मी मम्मी चिल्लाती भाई, अरे आपकी बड़ी दूसरी को, राइट? Lots of problems that you face. टाइम कितना हुआ? हमारे पास टाइम है 10 मिनट है. रहने देते, टीचर को कल खत्म कर दिया. कोई सवाल है तो पूछ. इट्स फाइन. ऑनलाइन अश्विन में कह रहा है कि सर बहुत बढ़िया है, ठीक है, बढ़िया. तो अभी तो रजाई जब ठंड में आएगी तब तो और भी बहुत बढ़िया होगा, तब तो और ही मजा आएगा ऑनलाइन क्लास में. नहीं, अपना कम्बल वम्बल लेके भी पूरा फोन लेके पड़े हुए. Any question if you have? Yeah. Okay.
So shall I ask you?
Yes, sure.
In Thought of Idealism, you wrote like 2 long sentences, and then you told me to write paragraphs.
Actually, one by one है ना. हाँ. ठीक है. कोई सवाल है आपका क्लास से रिलेटेड आज? If you have any doubts related to class,
Could you also talk about the kind of voting in election, like FPTP or PI, like something like that? Do the philosophers talk?
No, this is the modern electoral law that developed in the UK, right? Especially the first FPTP, right? तो आपको पता है FPTP क्या होता है? PR क्या होता है? proportional representation to मेरे दिमाग में नहीं आ रहा है कोई, but there are scholars.
When we talk about direct democracy, it is clear that the direct.
Exactly.
But in indirect democracy, how do they vote?
Yeah, how to vote, how to decide, how to decide who is the winner, who is not winner. There are thinkers, like I'm missing the name, but who talks about this law. Like there are thinkers, yeah. ठीक है, तो जब इलेक्टोरल कंपैरेटिव पॉलिटिक्स में पढ़ेंगे इलेक्टोरल लॉ, you'll get it. Fine. But अगर बोलोगे तो मैं आज ही मेल कर दूंगा कौन ऑथर है, but at this moment I'm missing the name. There. The thinking man is a deprived animal means, he asked about Rousseau. Rousseau talks about a thinking man is a deprived animal, right? Rousseau was very critical to modernity. He was very critical to religion. He was very critical to rationality, right? And what he said, man was very kind of sent. His life was blessed. He was not thinking man, right? But with the origin of private property, man started thinking about, right? And he became deprived of someone's soul, or deprived of, he became deprived of himself, and he became subordinated to the property, to the someone's soul. He became, subordinated to his desire, more property. Therefore, he thinks that a reasoning man, a man who thinks, is a deprived animal, because he is not of his own. Yes, Shobhe? Political science as a master science. Aristotle describes political science as a master science. Anyone? Can anyone explain?
Because it is present everywhere. Although all sciences just tells us why things exist and what to do, but the political science tells us how to do and manage it.
If you look at the disciplines like economy, it talks about economic means, right? If you talk about science, it talks about scientific means. So, except political science, all disciplines, gives you means, but political science talks about the ends itself, right? What is the purpose, right? And that's why it is a master science. Political science also regulates the other science. That's why it is a master science.
Sir, we were talking about how idea just moves forward and then gives material. So, is it similar to the practice of Hindu tradition of Brahmodaya?
Herodotus?
Brahmodaya.
What's Brahmodaya? Brahmodaya.
Yeah.
Who gave this philosophy?
It's just like Shastra.
Okay, right. Hoga. Brahmodaya क्या है?
So it's similar to dialectic method. People discuss idea and they come to conclusion.
Okay. होगा. अगर ऐसा है तो सिमिलरिटी है.
Sir, there is one writer named as Eric Wayne, and he talked about Brahmodaya in his book, the Socrates Express. Yeah, so
क्या नाम है?
Eric Wayne, ERICWEIN.
मुझे भेजिएगा ना.
Sir, I can tell you.
अच्छा, ठीक है. हाँ, मुझे भी दिखाइएगा. Shobhit has asked, Rousseau's political thought as a paradoxical character. What do you mean by paradoxical here? Why Rousseau called, Rousseau's writing is a paradoxical. Once upon a time he said, okay, man should be forced. Secondly, he said free, forced to be free. Or man is free, but everywhere is in chain. That is paradoxical. आप कह दें कि ओके शोभित बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन बहुत गंदा है. तो ये पैराडॉक्सिकल. एक थोड़ी देर में हम कह रहे हैं कि बहुत अच्छा है, थोड़ी देर बाद कह रहे हैं कि वो बहुत गंदा है. शोभित. So if you look at the language of Rousseau, his articulation is paradoxical. Man can be forced to be free.
Also, can be at that he is against educating and against it, and he himself is educating by his thoughts.
He was not educated because he talks about experience that transferred from generation to generation. That is also education. He was against the modern education, right? The science, innovation, because that gives inequality, that gives birth to the poverty, right? Unprecedented poverty, dehumanization. That's why he criticized, the modernity. उसका टॉक आपने बताया ना एक पेपर था जिसमें लिखा हुआ था whether modern science and modernity has to empower the people or not. He said no, right? Right? Yes. So for example, अगर आज की बात करेंगे तो village people have more virtues. Village people have more virtue than the city people. Right? City people are very cruel. It is said that. Like if you compare, village people have more virtue than the city people. City people means modern people. है ना? यहाँ पे compare है modernity और tradition के साथ में. Right? So he thinks that modernity brought many bad things.